Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 69. All articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Look for News Recap 118. So just a quick summary of things I'll be going over. A couple of things that sparked my interest on the last week's Metaverse Nomads show. There was an Atlas Brew, so I'll mention a couple things about that. Found a new Star Atlas content production, I'm not sure what to call it yet, show, podcast, live stream, called Command Deck, so I'll mention that. A couple changes to Sage Starbase, and then, which I guess I'm making my reoccurring segments at the end, kind of what my thoughts are on the state of Star Atlas, and then kind of my journey in playing Star Atlas. So before I get into that, just a couple things to remind you, if you've listened before, of some of my Star Atlas projects. First is my Star Atlas merch store called Intergalactic Gear. You can go to intergalacticgear.com. It is now officially open for business and slowly adding products to it. Launched with a Star Atlas logo mug, and I have created a different color of the mug, and there's a couple other mugs I'll be putting on there. So definitely not full selection by any stretch, but again, accomplished my major first phase, which was just getting all the components together, from e-commerce to websites to manufacturing, sales tax, shipping, way too many things. And again, if you wanted to follow on the story, you can read some of the updates on the website at intergalacticgear.com. I also have a merch survey there, so if you'd like to fill that out, it'll give me some indications of some other items I can put in the store. And then the second thing is what I'm calling a non-guild guild, or just basically a community for people who don't want to join a guild but nevertheless want to hang out with other Star Atlas gamers. It's called Intergalactic Coalition. You can find that at intergalacticcoalition.com. My goal is to have a kind of community where people can hang out, chat. I shouldn't say chat, talk. It is not based on a chat forum, so it's not Discord. It's using a different technology that allows for better organizing of conversation threads and getting alerts when people have posted. So it's not the kind of stream of consciousness that is Discord. So anyways, once I get enough people interested in that, and again, it will be a paid platform, partly to offset the cost of this other software and to, contribute to helping me moderate and provide content in there. It's at intergalacticcoalition.com. So let's go ahead and get into the bulk of the content I wanted to share with you from the past week in kind of the Star Atlas community and game and everything like that. As is their tradition, the Metaverse Nomads had their live stream on YouTube last Sunday, and they did a couple interviews of a few data runners, and I'm vaguely remembering their names. It was Victor from AFIA and Steven, who used to be a Star Atlas employee who's doing his own kind of data things. Anyways, we're really interested in their different data reports using a product called Flipboard. Yeah, can't remember. Anyways, they're great resources. It was great seeing some insights and hearing how they kind of look at data, especially blockchain data. So a very good thing to check out on the interview. But there was a couple points that they brought up in talking with different people on the show too that kind of got me thinking. One was this kind of idea that the long-term goal is for gamers to be specialists in Star Atlas. And that's been kind of a reoccurring theme, that right now we are all trying to do everything: mining, crafting, exploring, whatever, everything. But it's all the gameplay we have, so it's really hard to specialize at this point. But I don't deny that could be the long-term goal. So I thought that was, again, bringing up. And the other thing they brought up was kind of, and again, market volatility. And by that, this is where I'm not always sure how, when people use terms, what they actually mean. Do they mean the Star Atlas marketplace has a lot of volatility? Do they mean the Solana system has a lot of volatility? Does the price of Atlas have a lot of volatility? Again, when somebody says there's market volatility, again, traditionally that would have been the stock market. So, but nevertheless, that makes sense because there is a lot. But what they mention, and that's why I think this is much more of Solana or maybe the price of Atlas, they mentioned that some gameplay styles or things may not work at sometimes on that. And again, I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's, again, kind of hard to reconcile that with, well, I want to play a game, and a game should be kind of consistent. So again, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, I think part of it is just my definition of game, and what I'm looking for is not other people's definitions, which, again, I'm glad that Star Atlas is proposing an ecosystem that is very varied, have a lot of variety, and people can play different ways and things like that. So that's all great. But they were kind of talking about making sure that there are other rewards in the system. And this was, again, I kind of go back to, and again, I'm not saying for sure just because they were data runners that kind of sparked the different things, but there did seem to be a pattern that the charts and reports were made were partly to determine the, quote, ROI, so the return on investment. Well, if you're mentioning ROI, you're mentioning money. So kind of, again, got out of the traditional gameplay and moved more into investment. And again, I know we're not supposed to say financial advice, but again, it's financial. Again, that's just to save you from whatever. I don't even know why these people say it, to be honest. Anyways, but the final point that came up, and again, this is just more about different perspective, is that somebody was mentioning they really are they want to think of Star Atlas more as a hedge fund and not just a game. Again, that's fine. There's the economic parts of crypto, but again, it's a game, not a hedge fund. If I was doing a hedge fund, I don't even know what a hedge fund is, really. I mean, some speculative stock thingy. But anyways, so in the end, everybody can have their perspective. I guess from my perspective, what I'm looking for is I want a game. And sure, if there's a real money component, that's cool. It's another incentive to get into it that's different from traditional video games that have been produced on consoles or PCs. But hedge funds and investments and all this, I mean, I don't know. Again, if you lived in it before, I'm more in for the gaming. So moving on, it was still great to hear different perspectives, and that's the one thing I do value great about the Star Atlas community is there's lots of great perspectives out there, and it's great to hear from other points of view. So the Atlas Brew occurred this past week. One, as is tradition, they usually kind of have some news at the front. And one thing that was mentioned, and one of the reasons that the crew cards have been delayed is that there was this issue of the images that were coming out that they were all focused on mud, but now they said there's a good chance, not definitive, but a good chance that all three factions will have images that will be, I assume, unique in the stories and all that. So I think that feels better to release because lots of people are becoming very tight in and like their faction. So to get a placeholder non-image, you promoted three factions. Why aren't they equal? So anyway, so I thought that was a great little bit of news. And then the bulk of the Atlas Brew went over, again, more about the perks that were released about the crew. And as I mentioned last week, I'm sorry, this just doesn't really interest me personally. It's so far out, stacking different things. And again, it's fine. It's just not something I'm into yet but I'm glad it's there, and I'm, I guess, long-term interested in it. So I admit I was multitasking, doing something else, and so wasn't really paying attention. So, and the next thing, somebody, and I apologize that I don't remember these things, but I guess I shouldn't apologize. I just don't put down enough effort to write down things. But somebody on Twitter said, hey, you should check out Command Deck. So I did. So Command Deck is another Star Atlas, well, I guess, actually, I shouldn't say. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is. But what it was, this last one I listened to were some Star Atlas community members. I think it was on Kepler TV. Yeah, Kepler TV. Links to this is in my news recap. So again, go to Intergalactic Herald, look for 118, and you can find the link there to the Command Deck. So I believe Kepler TV or KeplerNet has been doing a lot of Spanish-speaking Star Atlas content. So unfortunately, I can't speak Spanish, so it's not on my to-do list to listen to, but again, I'm glad that the Star Atlas community is worldwide, and there are lots of people servicing different languages, so that's great. This one is in English, and it was bringing in some other members. Now, I'm not sure, again, since I only listen to one, if these are the regular team, kind of like the Metaverse Nomads, or if it's people that are interested, or they're part of a guild. Again, I'm kind of learning all that, but definitely would encourage you also to take a look at it, because I do think it's, at least from the first listen, it's a great, another roundtable of Star Atlas community members who get together and chat about what's going on. So always happy to see, and again, probably it's been around longer than I'm aware. So, this is how I discover things, and so I share them with as part of my curated thing. So anyways, do check that out, and I have it on I think it's weekly, on my listening schedule as I catch up on all the week articles and content that occurred last week when I do it on the weekend. So anyways, moving into just one thing that came out from Star Atlas this week, which was some updates to the Sage Starbase. And so if you go into the Discord, I think it's in announcements, minor announcements, or patch notes, not really sure. Anyways, it's up in that section. You can find all the information. But there was one that I wanted to talk about in particular, and I'll just read it as is, or as it was. So it says, now that with these updates now going live, we want to also let you know that we will be temporarily pausing regular updates to Sage Labs. Our focus will be on bringing Fleet Command up to feature parity. To give context, each update to Sage Labs requires corresponding development into Fleet Command, which can extend the timeline of our next major UE5 release. By concentrating on bringing Fleet Command up to speed, it's going to allow for better and more polished experience for everyone. Okay, so I think there's a couple of things to break down. One is the reference of Sage Labs. So I thought Sage Labs was the thing before, and now we're in Sage Starbase. And then eventually we're going to get Combat and something. So is now the browser, no matter what it's doing, called Sage Labs? Which, again, Labs doesn't sound like a product. Labs sounds like a demo or beta or something, so I'm not sure. The other one is bringing Fleet Command up. So I shouldn't say we, because I don't follow everything in Discord. I haven't heard too much about it other than what came out at Breakpoint, which was less than a minute or 30-second video showing some 3D thing, and that the idea was no longer are we going to have this web browser-based 3D thing. Everything is going to be in UE5, Unreal Engine 5, which again has been the showroom, which is going to be the long-term thing and all this. So I get the idea that they want to have the features the same between the two, but there's a whole lot that I guess just to me hasn't been really fully explained on what the goal or purpose of Fleet Command is. Now, again, maybe it's in the roadmap. Maybe I should go read that. But anyways, there's that. So there's two other things. One is it makes it sound like Starbase will be stable for a while. So whatever they updated won't change for a while. Actually, I like that. I think this is good, that we can finally get some stability in something and not wonder, well, this is broke and they need to fix that and whatever. So we'll see how the updates that just were pushed out kind of hit the community and how community feels about that. But sounds like unless something's like really wrong, we have what we have. So that's cool. But the other thing that it's interesting now is that this Fleet Command, which again, hadn't heard about before, could extend the timeline for our next major UE5 release. And I was like, well, wait a second. The UE5 release was going to be racing and they even had the track set up and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, how does that have anything to do with this Fleet Command, which again, other than a RTS type 3D version of Sage Labs? Anyways, I have a lot of questions about this because it's like we really, in my opinion, we really need the UE5 version to come out. And I don't know why now it's being impacted by this thing that we didn't even know about. So I think there's a lot that wasn't really explained in this update or this statement, but again, hopefully it will, which leads me into the next thing. So we'll move forward into my State of Star LS since that kind of was there. One, again, as of now, we're still waiting. Crew cards apparently are delayed further. Seems unlikely they'll come out at the end of June. UE5 now is dependent upon Fleet Command, which is now needs to be brought up to speed with Sage Labs. I mean, again, you could kind of imagine a Gantt chart and project management where all these dependencies are coming, but it sure seems more complicated. But maybe everything will become clear because one of the cool things they finally put on the calendar is that there will be a town hall on July 3rd. So as of this taping, it's still like a week and a half out. Quote, it's being promoted as the biggest ever, but again, hate to be whatever, but it can't always be the biggest ever. But again, we'll wait and see. To me, this is feeling more like a great mid-year status report because we haven't had a lot. Like I've been saying, we're kind of in this waiting mode. Crew cards were announced and haven't come out, and Starbase did, and then hasn't really worked, and we haven't heard about Combat in a long time, and now this Fleet Command came out of nowhere, and the mobile app. Anyways, so regardless of how big it is, I think it would be good to have a mid-year status report. So in the end, I think we'll just wait, and we'll see what they talk about, and we can go from there. So, but one thing that also kind of in this kind of State of Star OS, I think has become very apparent, and the update to Star Starbase really showed that is one, and I'm totally fine about not making announcements, but they said, hey, it's going to change today, and then inevitably it doesn't, and it usually takes another day to fully roll out. Now, again, this could be blockchain issues, I don't know, but again, kind of there. But I think the real big thing, and it's become very consistent, and I think we as a community have to acknowledge, not that it's a negative, but it is a reality, is it almost always has severe bugs that break the game. Again, there was a whole bunch of chat in the Sly Assistant tool, which I'm now following more closely about, hey, this changed this, and now Sly Assistant have to change. Now, again, you could say that's an outside tool, but nevertheless, they change the game themselves. And other parts of the game are affected. So, for example, I've mentioned I've kept some of my big ships in Faction Fleet, and the button, which reliably you'd click and resupply your fleet, just doesn't click anymore. And I thought it was a web browser thing, but then I saw other people in Discord mentioning theirs too. So what does that have to do? So again, I think all this should be completely expected given the current phase of development, but I think we should get to the point where we should no longer be surprised or frustrated by any of this. This is just how it works. When an update comes, it doesn't come when it's said it's coming. It takes longer to roll out. It's going to have bugs. It's going to break things. It's going to break things that you think shouldn't be broke, and the team has to resolve them. So I think that's just what we need to expect, and I'm glad I had just finished up some of my mining and actually had left. Maybe it was broke when it was happening because I wasn't reading Discord in the morning, and I haven't restarted it and probably won't until things feel like they've settled out. So anyways, and then the very final thing, kind of going back to something that was mentioned earlier, I think it was in the Metaverse Nomads, about, hey, is there other ways we can reward people for playing Star Atlas other than just Atlas and hence money? And they brought up an idea about time. And I was like, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if I'm doing this Sly Assistant and I'm in Starbase and I'm mining a million things in addition to the resources that I have gained for the costs I put into it, the resources to do that mining, and this maybe was where the experience comes into play. Maybe it's already there. We just don't have any way to interact with it yet, something like that. So again, I do think there could be other things. And again, we kind of mentioned a couple podcasts back about, oh yeah, I guess you have to have cooldowns. Otherwise people would just automate this stuff. Well, if I'm patient enough to wait through so many of these cooldowns, it means I'm engaging the system. Why am I not getting something for that? So again, I don't have the answers. I'm not a game designer, but I did like the idea that, yeah, maybe rewarding time could be something. So anyway, so just a small little tidbit. And so the final section, I'll just go over my journey. So where we left off, I was focusing in Starbase using Sly Assistant to mine carbon and set that up. So this time I did mining carbon and scanning for SDUs. So what I did is I started fresh with my 3 fleets, so I guess 4 technically. So I have 2 small scanning fleets, a mining fleet, and a transport fleet to move back and forth. So goal is send everybody out to wherever that resource is. Scanner fleets just look for SDUs around there and bring them back. The mining is already there, so it just keeps doing it. And the transport/move fleet moves the needed resources out, so food, fuel, and ammo, and brings back whatever I'm mining. So my goal is to mine 1 million carbon. So I started with 300,000 of each resource, so food, fuel, and ammo, because you don't need toolkits for anything, and 0.05 soul. So started going, again, still, it's not clockwork on getting things going, and definitely lots of breaking. Either the Starcom goes down, I'm not sure my internet goes down, but, something happens and I got to refresh. So I'm never sure if it's like constantly doing something, but nevertheless, it's doing something. So one thing I found out is I needed a little more soul. I wrote it down, but I haven't done the analysis yet. And I totally moved too much food and ammo. Now, I know I could have probably done calculations and figured out how much was needed and all that, but sounds like work. So I found out by doing it wrong, and I'm fine with that. So, but the downside was it spent a lot of time and fuel moving and soul and moving everything back, plus the carbon. So obviously it was very, very inefficient in the end. And because I realized how inefficient it was, I didn't even calculate everything. So I'll try again on the next one, but it's definitely been a good experience working on supply chain optimization. Now, is that a game? Is that fun? not as fun as it was the first time, but, maybe if I get things more streamlined and understand how things work, and I think, again, who knows with the updates, if that broke it. Anyways, so kind of now more on the fence on the fun factor, but again, it's still a challenge. It's still, something to solve, something to figure out. So still want to try to figure out, because if the inputs, so the long term, in addition to mining and things, I do want to figure out if the inputs, in this case, the fuel, food and ammo, and the soul, are worth the outputs. So again, I'll try on my next mining one, can't remember which resource is my next goal, be a little better to reduce how much resources I'm putting into the food and the ammo, and up the soul a little, and that way I can have a before and after. And I will note that I am not tracking how much it costs to get those. That is part of this, but again, I already have those for my claim stake, so again, I'm just looking at one aspect of that. So anyway, so still fun. I am starting to realize it's actually getting distracting when I look over the laptop and you see a red thing or something that's not working, and then you got to figure it out. But again, not really pointing any figures, because again, the Slide Assistant tool is great. I mean, if it was just manually clicking, I wouldn't even be trying this stuff. And how much of this is the blockchain? How much is this is Star Atlas making changes, which they're allowed to do, but it without announcing to the developers that are building tools on top of it. So again, as much as I understand, their whole thing is about the, compostability, but they need to do a way better job releasing when they make changes, so that the people building stuff actually know something changed. So we'll see, but definitely the newness is worn off. So anyway, so that's my kind of journey. So that wraps it up. Just again, reminder, if anybody's interested in being a podcast guest, definitely interested in either chatting about the week in review or doing an interview. If you're a community member, Star Atlas builder, content creator, or a team member, definitely love to do an interview with you on a special episode. So please do reach out to intergalacticherald.com. Go to my contact sheet or contact page. You can fill that out. And just a reminder again, if you're interested in buying any Star Atlas merch, please go to my merch store at intergalacticgear.com. Again, just have some mugs, but hopefully as time goes on, I'll be adding more. If not, always fill out the merch survey so I can get some ideas and feedback on things you'd be interested in purchasing. And if you'd like to hang out eventually with other Star Atlas gamers who are not interested in the guild system, but yet still want to have a place to hang out that isn't the chat style that's the official Star Atlas Discord, I'm looking to create a non-guild guild of people who just want to hang out and chat about Star Atlas on their time and not have to wonder about what they miss because the chat window keeps scrolling through. So check that out at intergalacticcoalition.com. And that pretty much wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed hearing about the week in review of Star Atlas, and hope you have a great week ahead. It's Matt with the Intergalactic Herald.